Hey guys, this is Allison. Welcome back to my podcast. This is episode 2. Couple of things today that I want to share with you. And I'm definitely going to try not to get emotional, but it might happen. So just bear with me if I do. I didn't even bring any tissues, so I guess I'll use my shirt. Thanks for everybody who tuned in last time. This has just been so incredible, and the support has been amazing. So I want to start out with something. Um, Part of my story is the weight loss, right? And part of my story is that I talked about last time is that drug addiction turned into food addiction, right? That was a really scary process for me to understand, that I had to learn how to live to eat. I'm sorry. I had to learn how to eat to live rather than live to eat. I knew I was going to mess that up. I always do all the time. But that's serious, right? I mean, that's a hard balance to figure out, especially when you already have such an addictive personality. But I like to start off with a little bit of a win for me today. So I have these pants on, and you can't see them, but they're Michael Kors pants, and I found them at, oh my gosh, like Ross or Marshalls or something sometime like 4 years ago. And they were snug, right? They were pretty dang snug. But I put them on today and they fit like a glove. And so, we're always working on ourselves. We're always working on our bodies and our insides and outsides and all of it. But to know that I woke up this morning and I've been working hard and it's working still. That was a good moment for me this morning. So I woke up in a pretty good mood, and I'm glad you guys are here with me. I wanted to share with you um, a little bit of something that I heard today. I listened to a lot of motivational stuff, just anything on YouTube that I can find about motivation and gratitude and things like that. And there's no way possible on in this world that I could remember these lines. So I wanted to read it to you. And so you're going to see me in my glasses because I'm 46 years old and I cannot see without them, even though I've had full lens replacement. I'll tell you about that story one day too. So what this person said was, raise the rest of your life to meet you. Don't search for defining moments because they'll never come. The moments that define you have already happened, and they will already happen again, and it passes so quickly. And in driving here today, I wanted to talk to you about what I kind of call my God moment. I struggled in life for a long time. My parents made me go to church. It wasn't ever a fun experience in church. It was always, youth group was not what it was supposed to be. I was mature for my age, physically and mentally, I thought, and so it kind of became just fending boys off, and that's what church was. That's what youth group was for me, and it wasn't a great experience. So I strayed really far away from that. I got into drugs at the age of, 13. I think I was 13. The first time I ever did anything. And this is also me being very unfiltered too. So I was 13 the first time I drank, the first time I smoked pot, all of that stuff. But it evolved, but it didn't evolve until later in life. I was pretty satisfied with those little things. And they could give me the escape that I was looking for. So when this journey, there's so many bits and pieces, and I don't want to leave anything out, but in the same moment, I'm probably going to squirrel and I'm probably going to jump around. So just bear with me to follow the story. I guess I was searching for love in all the wrong places, like most of us girls that grow up without dads. We do that. And so I would kind of get into a situation where, I'd be hanging out with people and like, oh, let's try this and see what happens. And oh, let's try this. Peer pressure was a real, it was real, especially for me. And so when I got into the hard stuff, like I knew addiction ran rampant on either side of our family, right? And I'm not going to get into naming names, but on both sides of my family, addiction's rampant. So I knew that I had to be very careful. But man, when you get in that phase of life that you just don't care, and you don't have anything to believe in, and you don't have someone that's leading you or guiding you. I'd been, I've had a few stepdads. I've had, a few people that were in and out of my life that probably left an impression, and that's a whole nother story too. But when I got into the hard stuff, I was hanging out with the people that I shouldn't have been hanging out with, and cocaine was my drug of choice, 100%. Meth was, it played a role, but not near as big as the cocaine. And once I discovered that, I wasn't really one for downers or anything that makes me low. I wanted something that could just make my mind explode, right? And so I discovered cocaine. Wow, this is harder to talk about than I thought it was going to be. So I went to the dentist one day because, actually, let me back up a little bit. I went to the car wash one day and I saw one of my old ex-boyfriends. And he worked at the car wash, and he goes, "Hey, how are you doing?" I, rolled down my window and he's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm great." And I'm smiling. He's like, "Girl, what happened to your teeth?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "What happened to your teeth?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I quit smiling after that. Right. And I knew I had some issues because, the drugs, they eat your teeth, they eat your enamel and things like that. So the drug use continued, but I did seek out a dentist, and he looked at me. I told him that I liked to eat lemons so that he wouldn't tell because I was only like 19, I guess. And I didn't want him to tell my mom what I was doing. Like, he figured out what I was doing, but I just lied and said it was lemons. And he said, "Do you know what I see when I look in your mouth?" And I said, like, what is this going to be? And he said, "I see a shiny new red truck in my future." And I thought, wow, what an asshole. God. And I went to see another dentist after that. So I found one of my favorite people in the whole world, Dr. Murph. He's been my dentist. He's retired now, but he was my dentist from like 19 on. And he helped 100%. So I remember before I could have all that dental work done, I had to have my wisdom teeth taken out. And I remember walking into, like, I don't know if y'all can see that, but I'm trying to be still, but I'm shaking telling this. Because I don't even know if my family knows some of this, and they're going to listen to this stuff. And this is so raw and real, and sharing with them that, gosh, Mom, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not sorry, because everything that I've been through has defined me of who I am now, right? And who I've become. But if you didn't know any of this, Mom, I'm sorry, because I know you're listening. But I remember walking into the surgeon's office that morning, and he came up to me. I had been up all night partying, like all night long, and I knew they were about to put me to sleep to pull my wisdom teeth out. And Dr. Acker came up to me and he said, "How are you doing today?" And I was like, I lost my shit. Like, I cried. I was like, "I'm not okay. I'm so scared." And I was scared of the procedure, but I wasn't scared for the reasons that he thought, right? I was scared that I was going to die because I still had cocaine in my system and I was about to get put to sleep. So yeah, I mean, I was 19 years old and scared to death, right? Oh man. So I made it through it. I survived it. I'm not quite sure how, but I did. Oh, so backing up just a little bit more. When I was 16, I had cervical cancer, and I was told that I probably would not be able to have kids. And that devastated me. That was, I always pictured myself as a mom, and to think that that wouldn't happen was detrimental. Thank God for trim sticks, right? So they said I wouldn't have kids. I believed it. And so about that time that I was doing all the drugs, and I thought it'd be a great idea to get a dog because, well, if I can't have kids, I'm going to have a dog. So I went to Petland. Anyone that's where we're from knows what it is. And I found this dog. And I bought this dog, and he was perfect. He was half lab, half Dalmatian. And if I can paint the picture for you for a perfect dog, his backside was black, his tip of his tail was white, half of his face was like white with black spots, and the other half of his face was black, and then his underside was white with black spots. His little socks were white with black spots. I mean, he was like perfect. And one of my favorite names, and this is way before this person ever came out musically, right? So yeah, I read it in a VC Andrews book, and the guy's name in the book was Drake. And I was like, well, if I'm never going to have a kid and I'm not going to call him Drake, then I'm just going to call my dog Drake. So Drake became my dog. He was like the best dog ever. He went with me everywhere. All of my friends knew him and loved him. And my favorite story from him, I used to cook like a barbecued sausage, right? And so I was in the kitchen one day in the house that we lived in, and I was cooking sausage, and he knew like I would give him the end pieces of it, right? And so I cut off the end pieces. Well, he always liked to sit up on top of the couch, and he was a big dog, half lab, half Dalmatian. I mean, that he was probably easily 70 pounds at that point. He was not quite a year old. And so he used to sit at the top of the sofa and look outside. Well, I call him to come and get the sausage. And I hear this crash. I'm like, what in the world? Here comes this dog running into the kitchen with the blinds, like the string from the blinds attached around his neck, and he's pulling them behind him because he's determined he's going to get that sausage. I mean, he was just such a goofy dog and such a cool dog. And I just thought that was going to be my kid for a long time. So I made it through the wisdom teeth pulling. I survived that. And I started going to the dentist, right? And I was going to the dentist so much that it was like 4-hour appointments twice a week. I had 26 cavities. And that was just the cavities. That wasn't like the crowns and the root canals and all the things that I had to have. And I still have to have work to this day. Like all those drugs like followed me all the way into my adulthood. So it's time for another dentist appointment. And of course I stayed up all night partying. Shouldn't have, but I did. And I was late. I was late getting to the dentist, and so he wouldn't take me. And I was like 20 minutes late. And where this house sits, I actually passed it on the way here. Every time I come here, I drive right by this moment, this like moment in life that was so defining for me. And that's why I wanted to read what I read earlier, is because this was so defining. He sent me home, and this was a 2-lane highway back then. And there were a lot of people that worked out of town, or out in the suburbs of outside of Tyler. And they would come into town to eat lunch because there wasn't anything out where they were. So I'm driving back, and there's a lot of traffic. It's like 11:30, 11:40 that morning. And I'm waiting in my in the right-hand lane to turn left into my driveway. And man, I had my music up. I still remember it was Book of Love, Tubular Bells was playing on my radio. And that's one of the crazy things about me. Like I could tell you, I can pinpoint where I was in my life based on the song, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting to turn left, and there's traffic coming, right? And my music's up. I've got like, I don't know, 2 Kicker 10s and an Alpine in the, in the dash. I think I had 12s actually. But anyway, so he hears me. He hears my car. And I had put him in the backyard before I left. So he didn't tear up the house because he was still a puppy. We made eye contact. And I didn't know he could hop the fence. And he hopped the fence. And he came running towards me because I'm his mom, right? And he got hit by a truck in front of me. And it changed everything for me. It's hard to say this without getting emotional, so sorry. I remember getting out of my car and banging on people's windows. Like my car's still blocking traffic on a 2-lane road, right? And I'm beating on people's windows. I'm asking them to help me. And no one would help. And that truck didn't stop. He kept going. And y'all, I sat in my driveway for 2 freaking weeks after that, waiting for that freaking truck to pass by again, like sitting in my car ready to drive out after it. I sat there. So no one would help. My roommate, Chris, he was inside. And I always had guy roommates because me and girls never really got along. But I could always have roommates with guys, and I felt, cared for and protected. And so I ran inside, and you had to go downhill. I hit the wall so hard turning the corner to go down to the hallway where the bedrooms were that I busted the thermostat off the wall and dislocated my shoulder. And I was screaming for Chris. And he came running out, and he told me later, he said, I've never heard screams like that in my whole life. He said, I'll never unhear that sound. And by the time I got back up to Drake, his eyes, like he looked at me one last time and his eyes left. They just went. And I knew he was gone. He was 13 days from being a year old. He's buried in a pet cemetery in White House with the canine and, a lot of other animals. So his marker, his gravestone's still out there. We had a funeral for him. He's buried in a pine box with his name whittled in the wood. And I buried him with some of his favorite toys. And I still have dirt from his grave, and I still have his collar in my office on the shelf. Cause I'll always carry this with me. And so Chris got him out of the road, got my car out of the road. And the crazy thing is, like, Chris was a big dude. Like, I'm talking like 6'4" and probably 300 pounds. I mean, he was just a big dude. And we were the best of friends. And he stood in that driveway and just let me scream and punch him and cry and lose my mind. And that's when somebody stopped. That's when somebody pulled over to help. Not when I was screaming to help me get my dog out of the road, but when they saw that I was like assaulting someone, right? And this lady pulls over, she's like, is everything okay? And Chris is like, yeah, I got this, So Pet Haven Cemetery came and picked up Drake the next morning. And that was probably one of the hardest days of my life, because in that moment, I realized that every single thing I do affects everyone around me in one way or another. And my life changed that day. I got clean. I got sober. I don't know, like I feel like it was I call it my God moment, because I feel like that's the time that he just picked me up and just shook me, and said, okay, pay attention. I have more for you. I have more important things for you to do than all this crap that you're doing. Right. And so, ironically enough, 3 months later, I was pregnant with my first son. So God already knew. He already had a plan for me. And man, I'm glad he had that plan. I had no idea I would end up being where I am and in a position to, to possibly help other people. And I remember when I was pregnant, I had a boyfriend. I'll get into that one day too. Danny and I talked about this. I was like, so how much can I talk about? Like, how far can I go with this? And he's like, this is your thing. You do whatever, So I was dating a guy named Aaron. He was probably my first love ever. He's from Australia, and I'll tell you about that story one day. But he said to me while I was pregnant, he said, I really don't know if you're going to be a good mom. I really don't know if you can be selfless enough to be a good mom. And I thought about that for a really long time, because when I got pregnant with Brighton, Aaron and I had split up. I met this really cute guy. That's a whole nother story. I'll tell you about that one day and how I met him. But he was not happy about me being pregnant. He did not want me to have Brighton. I moved from Tyler into Houston to live with him. And when I was about 4 months pregnant, he almost hit me. And his friend that was there stopped him. And I called my dad and my brother, told them what happened. They had a U-Haul there the next morning. Shane went out of town, and when he came back, he came home to an empty apartment, and I was gone. That was it. I have like zero tolerance for that. I don't have any tolerance for that. So back to the story. And of course, I'm going to choke on my water, right? My mom, when I moved out from my son's dad's, our apartment together, I moved in with my mom, and she's always been a great supporter. She helped me a lot when I was a single mom and things like that. But I never thought that, you don't live your life expecting to be a single mom or a single parent. It's just something that happens. It's not what we dream about. It's not what we envision for ourselves, but it's something that just happens. The ability to have a child after being told for so long that it wasn't possible, and losing Drake, and my friend telling me, or boyfriend at the time, telling me that he doesn't think that I'm going to be a good enough mom. Man, that's one thing about me. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do everything to prove you wrong. And I proved him wrong. So when Brighton was about 2 weeks old, I had come down to Tyler to visit, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm nursing him. And Aaron looks at me and he goes, I can't believe it. And I said, you can't believe what? And he said, I can't believe that you are actually being a good mom. I'm like, I told you, right? I told you I was going to do it. My kids are my world. My kids know about my God moment. They know when my life changed, and I brought them up with the knowledge of everything that you do affects everyone around you in one way or another. I can't stress that enough. To those of you that are struggling with addiction, to those of you that are trying to get clean, or maybe you just don't even care. You should care, because everything you do affects other people. Some of us are so selfish, like I was back then, that I couldn't even consider other people. But now it's easier. It's easier to consider those people. I carry that story with me, and I think about it every time I'm on my way here, every time I'm on this road, every time I leave this place. Drake is always in my heart, and I'm grateful, right? Because the thing is, God already knew. He already knew the plan. He knew that I couldn't take Drake with me when I got pregnant with Brighton to go live with my mom, so I would have had to give him up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, all those things, he already knew. And I wasn't a big believer until then. And my faith was still a little frail back then. And it's grown over the years. And I'm grateful for that. But I'm grateful for that lesson. You know, a lot of us have been through really hard things in life, and that's not even some of the hardest stuff I've been through, I think. Maybe it's one of the things, but we've all been through hard stuff, and we can all overcome that hard stuff. You know, you can overcome anything that you set your mind to. You're never stuck. You're only stuck if you believe that you're stuck somewhere. But there's so much more out there in life than what I was allowing myself to live. I thought I was living. I wasn't living. I was a slave to my next fix. One of these days I'll tell you about the moment that I almost died on Holly Tree Drive. Seriously. But I think for now, I want to leave you with that story. And I want you to know that your past, there's so many people that are afraid of it. They're afraid to let people know. And listen, there is so much in my past that there are so many things that people don't know yet. And I am scared shitless to tell it, because I'm scared I'm going to be judged. I'm scared people are going to look at me differently. I'm scared that my kids may look at me differently. My husband knows all of it, right? And one of my best friends, she knows things. Like, she's the one that'll help you bury a body in the middle of the night, right? You know, she's that girl. But you always get so scared of being judged. And right now, I don't care anymore. I don't care about being judged. I want my truth out there, because the thing is, it's made me who I am. So take those moments, all those things that have happened to you, the bad stuff, the good stuff, take those moments, and you don't have to let the bad things define you, but you can let them shape you. You know, you have two choices every day when you wake up. And I'll probably say this in every single podcast I have. You have two choices. You can wake up and you can be a survivor of all the things that have happened to you. And like I said, let it shape you. Or you can wake up every day and be a victim and let all of those terrible things that have happened to you define you. Who wants to live like that? You don't have to live like that. I could very easily take all the things that have happened to me and lay in bed all day long. But that's just not me. And it shouldn't be you. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for listening. Sorry I got a little emotional. It probably won't be the first time you see me cry. I come across as this really tough person, but I'm actually like all marshmallows inside. I care about what people think. I want to be loved. You know, that's the number one thing from everyone in this world, is we just want to be loved. So haters, I know there's going to be some out there. Go hate somewhere else. You don't have to do it here. Allow me to share my story and all of it. And either listen to it or don't, but don't be mean, because there's so much of that out there. and we should all just support each other and love each other. And, remember, when you're mean, everything you do affects other people too. So don't forget that. But I'll leave you with that. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Kimber Creek Media for allowing me to use their space and this time. And also, you can check out all of my stuff on the podcast, Is it Apple Podcast? Yeah, Apple Pod. Listen, I'm an Android girl, so that the word Apple coming out of my mouth is a little difficult because my husband and I argue about it all the time. So Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It's available on all of those things. Thank you for your support. Please make sure you like this, you share it, you comment, all that good stuff. And peace out, homies. Y'all have an awesome day.